child is a function just like being a doctor or a lawyer is a function. Everybody's a child at some point.
Yeah.
And so the rule, I like God because I said he was real smart. He didn't say children between the ages of 0 or 1 and 18 obey your parents. He say children. He made sure that if you was ever in the position of a child, the rules still applied to you too,
Yes,
whether you were 50, 60, 70, 80, or 100, or 5. So as a child, when you're in the child's place, which a lot of us are in the child's place, in various aspects of our lives, the rules are still the same for you as they were for the little baby. And the consequences apply equally. They may apply more, the consequences are usually greater as you get older, because you know better. You might get away with a little bit when you're smaller because you're still learning, but as you get older, you definitely know better. All right? And all this goes back to attitude. I know it may not seem like it, but attitude's a circular thing. Attitude and perspective are circular. And so that's the thing I wanted everybody to take out today, because it's the thing I looked at this week. My perspective will determine my attitude, right? But my attitude will determine my actions, what I physically do. Does that make sense? And so that's why you have to have Christ's mind.
Right.
And his perspective. Because if you ain't got his, then, your actions may be actions that you would do, but not necessarily what he would do. Okay? Everybody good? So I'm going to share a poem that I found, and I thought this was absolutely awesome. It's by a guy named Charles Swindoll. He says, "The longer I live, the more I realize the impact of attitude on life. Attitude to me is more important than facts. It's more important than the past, than education, than money, than circumstances, than failures, than successes, than what other people think or say or do. It is more important than appearance, giftedness, or skill. It will make or break a company, a church, a home. The remarkable thing is we have a choice every day regarding the attitude we will embrace for that day. We cannot change our past. We cannot change the fact that people will act in a certain way. We cannot change the inevitable. The only thing we can do is play on the one string we have, and that is our attitude. I'm convinced that life is 10% what happens to me and 90% how I react to it. Your actions are going to be, or your reactions are going to be a reflection of your attitude, which is a reflection of your perspective about the situation. So 90% of the time, think about that, 10% of the time is what happens to you. 90% of the time is how you, the person, are reacting to the situation. And I think what he was trying to say there are sometimes things that are just going to happen. And they just out the blue. But 9 times out of 10, even if a situation happens, the situation can be changed simply based on your attitude about it. Does that make sense? So I'm going to think about it. That's what he said. He says, his last phrase is, "And so it is with you, we are in charge of our attitudes." Again, attitude is a choice. You're going to have influence, you're going to have circumstances. But the attitude you have is a choice. I tell my students all the time, I can't control what no one else does to me. I can't fix that. But I can control how I choose to interact with you. I could have 1,000,001 things going on, but I choose how I interact with you. My attitude has to be good still, because what I'm going through has nothing to do with how I feel and how I need to act towards you as a person or to my circumstances. So that's how we should be thinking as we go through these weeks. Our attitude, and believe it or not, if you try it, I'm telling you, it's going to happen. You won't have a workout. But if you get it in your head that God's perspective about the issue is my perspective, And I'm going to let that perspective dictate my attitude. And then I'm going to walk in accordance with that attitude, which is God's attitude and his perspective. Things going to go a lot better. It's going to be rough, but you're going to find yourself, as I found myself at the end of the day, even though I had a million things go wrong, I was like, I ain't upset. I ain't stressed. I ain't worried about it. Every day was tough, but every day at the end of the day, I didn't go home, back hurt, muscles aching, cramped up, headaches. You know, I probably had the most stress-free week I've had in a long time. But it's because at the end of the day, no matter what situation was that day, Jesus is what you say. What you say, Jesus, I'm right there. I caught my husband this Saturday. He was going through. I was like, baby, slow down. You got the wrong perspective. I said, we got to have God's perspective about the situation. How does he see it? He was like, well, I said, once we get to how he see it, then your attitude should change. I called him back 10, 20 minutes later. He was cool with it. He's like, I'm all right now. I was like, you good? He said, yeah, I'm good. He said, that's why I need you as my wife, because I be having them moments. I say, it's all right. I got a meeting with her earlier this week. That's the only thing I can tell you about it. So, that was my whole thing for today. It's the subject my dad picked for me, but attitude. I want us to all work on our attitudes. And I have one other quote, which I like hearing what other people say, and this is from Benjamin Franklin. He was asked what sentences most influenced his life. He said, the sentence which has most influenced my life is, and this is the sentence, some persons grumble because God placed thorns among roses. Why not thank God because he placed roses among thorns?
Ooh, yeah. I can see.
He said, I first read it when but a mere lad. Since that day, it has occupied a front room in my life and has given it an optimistic trend. I never even thought about that. I always thought, these stupid thorns on these roses, why have these doggone thorns on such pretty flowers? And then I read this, I was like, wait a minute. You mean he placed the rose among the thorns, not the thorns among the roses? Gigi. But when I don't know if you guys caught it, but that's an amazing way to think about it. He didn't put bad with good. He put the good inside with what a lot of people would consider the bad.
Mm-hmm.